Alright guys, this is a video from Obsidian that I really appreciate. I like to watch his content. And it's like a follow-up of a video that I made from the games DG360, who made a video about 6 years ago about the truth of Star Citizen. And this is a video that I found from 7 years ago about top 10 future updates and expansions for Elite Dangerous. And we all know what happened to Elite Dangerous. We all know how that went. Basically, it's all about Thargoids, and that's basically it. So I want to see how right or wrong Obsidian was 7 years ago about his predictions and the direction of Elite Dangerous.
Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian and this is a look at the future of Elite Dangerous. Here are my top 10 most
He sounded a bit less confident than he is now, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
anticipated features.
Wow, very cool. So,
What is space without space stations? Elite Dangerous has a vast galaxy, 400 billion star systems, many thousands of which are inhabited. Now, I keenly remember the Ocella starport, the one that was meant to be deployed into new systems for a new frontier expansion, as is being shown in the trailer here.
well, there's only
This,
one
of course, already
that
has
does
happened
that,
in
and
the
that
game
is
in
the Jacques
past, but
station.
it's a very rare occurrence, so I'm hoping to see much more of it in the future. And just maybe this can be put into automatic cycles, so we see the station being constructed over time. Let's also not forget the potential for a greater variety of stations in the future. Many of these were shown during the concept phase of Elite's development, and some of them, to be perfectly honest, looked absolutely great to me.
Oh man, these stations look so fantastic in concept. Look at that. How come that never happened? Why is that not a thing right now in 2023? What happened, Frontier? They really screwed up. They really screwed up. This should have been a thing. Instead, they've been focusing on creating all those stupid Thargoids that no one cares about, instead of bringing more diversity into the game, more assets, more gameplay. No, we have more engineers and more Thargoids that you can only have access to with engineers or buying some nerfed guns if you want to be eventually avoiding the engineers. That's basically it.
Absolutely love to see something like this at some point in the future, giving the galaxy a much richer visual variety.
To meet today's regulations,
Oh
and
no,
market
we have
demands,
an ad.
ships need to be greener, safer.
Okay, number 9. Really cool animation here, by the way.
The Orrery map view is one of the things that got me most excited in the early days of the Elite development.
Sorry, another thing. Again, this is something that has been talked about for quite some time. We still have the same old map in Elite Dangerous, and this looks so much more readable than the map in Elite that we have in the game.
Just look at the wealth of information on here and all the gameplay opportunities that it could represent. Whilst the current system map has become increasingly functional over the previous few patches,
And it's still the
I feel
same.
An Orrery view gives a much better perspective of the galaxy, and David Braben has recently confirmed that it's still on the cards for the future. So here's hoping.
Well, David Braben, you screwed up because you said it was on the cards. 7 years later, it's still not a thing. So far, out of 10 predictions from 7 years ago, we're still at 0. Let's keep on going. Passenger mission.
I suppose one of the key things about passengers is they essentially they just naturally lead on to missions.
Far from being an alternative to carrying
Yes,
cargo,
we have them.
passengers represent an entirely new area.
That's
of
a
the
thing.
game.
They've been there
From
for quite
taking
some
them
time,
on
but they have not
excursions
evolved that
and
much.
cruises to taking them on big hunting game trips.
For example, here's one thing that where Frontier dropped the ball with Odyssey. When we had Odyssey, we could have had passenger missions from the stations, have the NPCs follow us inside the station all the way to our ships. No, does not happen. If you want to do some passenger missions, it's still from that screen that is so, artificial. It's not organic at all. It doesn't feel like, you're actually meeting your clients. You just click on a few buttons, you go to your ship, boom, and your passengers are magically in your ship, and that's basically it. And I don't like that. I wish that we could have used Odyssey to see those passengers, get them, board, maybe one by one, seen some of them coming out of spawn closets. Maybe, no, they did not do that.
Passengers may well ask you to get involved in entirely new missions. It's also been said
Now, Deplorable says that he's played Elite Dangerous for about 2 weeks before finding Star Citizen. Elite Dangerous was dead at this point. Wow, Star Citizen is so much more immersive and engaging, in your opinion. Yes, it is.
that passenger missions can trigger events such as ambushes and pre-arranged meetings with other ships, and even certain passenger missions may chain into a sequence of connected missions. So there's a whole wealth of
but that did happen though.
Gameplay there.
So
And
far
hopefully
we'll
the
give it a
Orca will
1.
come into
Yes,
its own with all that,
did
provided for
happen.
certain unique bonuses. I hope I won't be shot down for saying this, but the current market in Elite isn't the most complex of beasts. The early concepts
Yes,
of the
and
market
it has
look
not
like it was going to be
evolved
something
that
very
much
different
also.
indeed, and hopefully these are still open for the future. Now, I'm very much aware that these screenshots here are merely mock-ups, and it's been confirmed on the forums that they were never actually intended to be directly placed into the game in this sort of format. That said, there has been a wealth of discussion
but it still
from
looks
Frontier
pretty
on the
good. It
market,
still looks
and
much
just
better
some
than
of
we
these
have
features
in Elite
may
Dangerous
be
right now.
included in the future at some point. And what features are these? Well, we are
That's
looking
the
at things
market.
such
There we go.
as
We can see it in the
market
screen.
data
7 years ago,
availability,
that's how it was right
allowing us
now.
to see,
That's still how
market
it.
data when
That's how it
docked,
was
which
back
is obviously
then.
what
That's
we
still
can
how
do
it is right
but
now.
That can also be extended so that we can see market prices available from outside the stations, where only general information would be, and outside the systems itself we might be able to get some very basic
Yes,
information.
we have that.
Other
We have
potential
that.
features
That
for
has
the
been
market
done.
also included trading modules, as well as requiring specialist equipment for attempting to transport special commodities, and if you didn't have such equipment you risk spoiling the goods or contaminating them in some way. There was also a whole section in regards to player-to-player trading, allowing players to directly trade with each other so long as they were accessing the same market.
Well,
So
that
some
is
of this
still another
may
thing.
be there
No,
for the
sorry.
future. In either event, I look
Look at all
forward
those
to a
things that
market
just
that
did
is
not make
more
it in
tightly
7
integrated
years.
with the dynamic changings of the galaxy.
And this is something that we have.
Now that we have
that
power
we are
play,
going to have
the
eventually
powers in the
Star
galaxy
Citizen.
do seem to change around a bit. So as they change hands, it would make sense that the market itself should change, and this should factor into any traders' potential for profit and loss.
And that's also one of my big grieves that I have in Elite Dangerous. The whole player-to-player interaction in Elite Dangerous is pretty much non-existent apart from player-to-player combat, and that's basically it. Dynamic missions, yes, they do have
Dynamic
them.
missions are a biggie, and according to Frontier, the missions are already slightly dynamic as they are fed through the background simulator of the game itself. Now,
Yes.
as the background simulation becomes increasingly complex, as it already has been a little bit with the recent release
They have
of
dynamic
Powerplay,
missions,
it
they
makes
have
sense that the
chains of
themselves
missions
should
as
start
well.
becoming increasingly more complex, and hopefully this will lead to chain missions and sequential missions and all manner of other things.
Alright,
It may
so he
even
got
open up
that
the
correct.
possibility of missions being placed directly on players' heads themselves, such as a particular notorious bounty hunter may get a bounty mission placed on
Nope.
his head.
No,
I'd love to see this
that,
sort of
that
thing.
however, did
And
not happen.
Elite
Sorry.
certainly has the
If you
possibility
don't like a
for
player, well, you
some of
still
the early
cannot put a
concept
bounty.
art showed some interesting locations for missions, as well as some potential for very interesting missions themselves. And let's not forget that with the recent announcement of Close Quarters Combat update for the Xbox later coming to PC, Frontier have all but shown that it's possible to create some very interesting locations for certain events, so maybe this could be extended to missions.
Yes, but unfortunately, I mean, we never go to these locations. We barely see them. They're so sparse around the universe, right?
To a
Dynamic
point,
Galaxy.
we've already
So
got
let's
a
have a look at
dynamic
that.
galaxy within a game, but that could be extended a lot further, and indeed there's been discussions in the past that suggest it will go a lot further still than where it's currently at. And indeed it's quite possible that a lot of this is going to expand out to for power play as power play
Hello
gets
there.
further
Thank you
developed.
so much,
Here then
Baltimore.
is a screenshot captured from the power play trailer. This just may be a mock-up and may not be intended to be in the game, but it does hint at some potential possibilities of where things may go. So what's clear here is that missions of some type are being generated from the background power play simulation itself. Just look, we got destroy the rebels, construct
Yes, we have that.
military
So
bases,
all of that did
and
happen.
assist
That's
mine
correct.
efforts. So
We do have all
I
of
guess
those
they could
missions
mean
based on
anything,
the
but
actual
destroy the rebels would be
simulation
nice.
and
If we go
sometimes
back
the
to the
impact
idea
of
missions
the
being
players
generated
as
on
well
players'
inside the
heads,
game.
maybe those are NPC rebels, maybe they're players rebels. They could indeed be anyone.
Alright, so
in
Dynamic
opposing
Galaxy
factions.
is correct. Let's have a look at
Construct awesome.
exploration.
It could be argued that exploration is perhaps the most underdeveloped part of the game at the moment.
Now, exploration has evolved a little bit, especially that was like 2 or 3 years ago, where it was like a complete overhaul, where especially we were able to now scan planets and not just sell the data of finding the planet, but also selling the data on the planet's surface as well. So that's definitely some type of exploration gameplay that players can now enjoy. Also, with Planetary Landings, we've been able to explore surfaces for minerals, but also now with Odyssey, we can explore and find brand new types of living, not creatures, but living organisms that we can also sell the data of. So that's definitely something that was done.
But there's a whole lot that could be done with this in the future. And maybe this could involve the introduction of new elements and objects in space.
You were
One of the
kidnapped and
newsletters
taken
actually
far away so
mentioned
you couldn't
planets
fly
with
back.
neon
I
atmospheres,
remember that
did
when that happened
reference
to some people.
That has never been seen in astronomy as yet, but it's something that is included in the game. Shortly after the patch that first allowed us to get the first discovery data found, it was noticed that on occasion people were discovering comets. These, as it stands, are currently actually in the game. At least the data points for the comets are in the games.
I've
but
never
the
seen comets in Elite
themselves are not
Dangerous.
yet. So that, at the very least, represents something that hopefully will be put in and unlocked very, very soon. Other things that have been talked about as being part of exploration and the galaxy itself, unusual phenomena, secret locations, resources.
Yes, these have
the
been put
potential
into
to
the
come
game.
across
Yes,
and discover missions that are actually
phenomena,
inside the galaxy
including, for
itself
example,
as you explore.
some weird
Perhaps you can
space
discover
living
beauty
things. Of
spots
course,
and,
we've got
gain a
eventually the
bonus for that.
Thargoids and the Guardians.
And not to
That's
mention
also
the
something
fact
that was
that
put.
maybe lost messages and beacons
Yes,
are out there
that
to be
also,
discovered.
including
The
some
whole point of
lost ships. There's
exploration
been
is
an entire
discovery,
narrative
of
about
course.
that.
And it would seem Frontier are keenly aware of this. We recently had the discovery of the Thargoid artifact, after all.
I can't believe it. That was 7 years ago. I can't believe it. 7 years ago, they were already. I can't believe that. I don't remember that because I was already so much into Star Citizen. But 7 years ago, they were already starting their whole Thargoid narrative. That is crazy. Walking around. Yes, that one is there.
When there's a big war going on somewhere
that
in the
is not
universe, that always reflects.
Now, chances are for many people this would be a number one on their list of most anticipated.
And it turned out it was a flop. It turned out that Frontier have messed it up. Because there's no ship interior. There's only station interior. But nope, you can't walk in your ship as we were looking at here.
Features for Elite Dangerous, but it's sitting here at number 3, and part of the reason is that I've already had a little bit of a taste of this. You may have noticed in the Oculus Rift videos I do, I actually am able to get up out of my in-ship seat and have a walk around the cockpit. So I've had a little bit of a taste of it, and I think it's potentially a great feature, but it's certainly going to have the right sort of content to go along with it.
So that means 7 years ago, ships already had at least the interior of their cockpits. That means that it was already, and they have done nothing about it to make it a possibility or, like a reality.
I think this could well be one of the first major expansions to come out, and it actually makes sense when you think about it. Once you can get out of your seat.
Sorry,
and
Obsidian, it came out 6 years after your video.
All the other expansions would then follow suit from after that. After all, there's a whole ton of content that could be included in the game once you've got the ability to actually walk around.
Yeah, and there was. There's FPS combat, there is, infiltration, assassination. I personally like a lot of the content that I know that a lot of people don't. I enjoy a lot of the combat or the content that was added with Odyssey. Do I think Odyssey is a great expansion? I don't think so. Again, as with many different types of addition to Elite Dangerous, I think that Odyssey is a missed opportunity. But I, for one, do agree here with Obsidian Ant that there's definitely a lot that could have been added for spacewalk or space legs, which was basically Odyssey, and lots of potential. But again, because we don't have ship interiors, we don't have anything like shipboarding, taking part of ships. All of that does not exist anymore, and that's unfortunate. That's the reason why you abandoned this, in your opinion. Now dead or near death of old age and lack of investment. Exactly right, Baltimore. Exactly. By the way, thank you so much for following the channel. And yeah, they put some features, but then they don't invest into, and then they invest into storylines that feel cheap, and that people are not really that interested into, because that's not what they play Elite Dangerous for. They play Elite Dangerous for the universe, not the thrill of being extinct by some kind of alien race that's actually being grown artificially by the devs in their studio.
A lot of people certainly have a lot of very different ideas when it comes to thinking about what sort of content we can have when walking around our ships and even outside of our ships. What I'm most looking forward to is getting into the other rooms in our ships at the moment. Even with the Oculus Rift, we're limited to the cockpits, and on the larger ships such as the Anaconda, we should have a whole bunch of rooms there.
Well,
and
nope,
indeed, it would
sorry,
be great to actually
did
get
not
down
happen.
to the cargo hold and see the actual cargo we're carrying.
I know. Well, for that, if you want to see your cargo hold and see what's inside your ship, well, that's Star Citizen. You gotta go to Star Citizen. That's the game you're looking for, Obsidian.
I'm also looking forward to the ability to walk around the stations, but whether we're going to be limited to walking around singular rooms,
Yeah.
or whether we'll have free.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We're limited to walking to a few rooms. Basically, it's a hall where you have some standing NPCs who are static as well, and you have a few screens that you can look at, and that is basically it. And all of those interiors are pretty much all the same. And it's boring after a few times.
roam of the entire station remains to be seen. I imagine that the amount of content needed to walk around one of the habitation rings would be sheer ludicrous. It was
I mean, it can be procedurally generated. They just need to build the assets, but once they do that, they can procedurally generate the interiors of the buildings, and that's basically it. They'll need to have unique interiors for each of the stations.
referenced once that a single habitation ring contains the same amount of landmass as the entire game of Grand Theft Auto 4.
Yeah, even ship
Frontier
HUDs are all the
certainly got
same.
a
That's
challenge on their
right.
hands with this one. I look forward to seeing what it comes to.
Thargoids. Oh no.
We know they are coming. David
Yeah,
Draven
they
has
did
confirmed
come.
as much only recently yet again at E3, and the Thargoids certainly have the potential to completely shake up the entire elite galaxy.
They have, and let me know in the comment section down below, guys. What do you guys think of Thargoids in Star City in Elite Dangerous? I think that they did shake up the game, but for me, it's not in a good way. It's more of a hindrance. I would have liked them to stay in their own sector and disturb humanity in their own sector. I don't like the fact that they're invading human space, and that we're kind of forced somehow. We're not really forced. We can play Elite Dangerous without... I made a test on the channel. We can play Elite Dangerous without interacting with the Thargoids at all. But it just feels like, we can still feel their presence with, the galactic hub net, and also in the star map as well, where you can see which systems are available and which systems are under attack. And it's just I find my experience in Elite Dangerous stressful because of that. I just don't like it.
In fact, the in-game news has even made reference to alien influence a number of times, so it's looking like the Thargoids or some other alien force may show up very soon. And of course we had the alien artifact that showed up recently, giving off a very strange and unusual signal,
And
that
that was
caused
the
the community
Guardians?
to go into meltdown mode in attempts to try and decode it and decrypt it.
Can you imagine if this was 7 years ago and we were already talking about Guardians and Thargoids?
And the Thargoids eventually
They have been stuck with this kind of gameplay. They have been stuck in this loophole, the rabbit hole, for 7 years. That means that for 7 years they have not moved on. It's unbelievable.
It's anyone's guess as to
Such a
what
waste.
that could involve, but war will certainly be on the cards, I would imagine. It certainly invites a lot of potential conflict. Added to that, where do the
Right, exactly, right? Baltimore says he hates the feeling of being forced to play against them, right? Should be instance-based, perhaps. That's absolutely.
Thargoids come from?
Especially what I hate is that you have to, well, not the case. Now you can finally buy Xeno weapons that are going to allow you to deal with the Thargoids from shops. But They're not everywhere. And in the past, I really hated that you had to go through engineers to get weapons that could eventually deal with those Thargoids. Not just that, but also shields and components that could eventually withstand their attacks as well. I hated
will we be able
that.
to visit their space? What do their ships look like? What do their homeworlds look like? What do their stations look like? And will we be able
They
to
don't have
dock with their
stations.
stations? Will they be another faction we can interact with? Maybe
Nope.
we can trade with them. Maybe
Sorry,
we can
Obsidian.
do missions
Nope.
with them or against them. The Thargoids really do have the potential to open up the galaxy to a totally different area of space. And that in more ways than one.
And finally, what is the number one here? Planetary Landings. Aha.
Of course, this is the one for me.
Oh.
It is the one that will change Elite from being a great game to me to being the dream game. Elite is already a vast game, but with the ability to go down to planets, it is going to dramatically change just what that galaxy is all about.
What is this
It's
planet?
something
That is
I'm
not in
really
Elite
looking
Dangerous,
forward
is
to,
it?
especially when you consider what other elements of gameplay that could unlock. The potential for missions alone is staggering. Now, many people actually wonder if it is even technically possible. The videos in the background will actually show that it is technically possible. These are both running from
Space Engine?
Altera and
Aptera.
Space Engine.
Okay.
I don't see any reason why Frontier themselves cannot exceed what is being shown here. And to be perfectly honest with you, even if there was no content at all down on those planets,
It would still be nice to
as
go there. So he made
explorer's
this video
dream to be
before-
able to go down to these planets
before
and
Planetary
check
Landings.
out all of these vistas. Just look at all the landscapes that are possible from alien worlds.
Exactly, and we can land on planets that don't have atmosphere or very tiny atmosphere, and we cannot see skies like that. Those planets feel still when they have a tiny atmosphere, they still feel very barren and very boring. And again, it's a missed opportunity. Why has that not evolved? Why has not Frontier made some progress towards giving us thicker and thicker atmospheres and access to different types of world instead of the same worlds all over again? Why don't we have access to water worlds? Why don't we have access to carbon dioxide rich world, ammonia world, and eventually Earth-like worlds? And that is really something that I would like to see following Odyssey, but no, instead we're seeing more Thargoids.
But I'm sure there's going to be the potential for so much more than that. Just imagine mining on an alien world. And of course, we will also have the habitable worlds, which opens up the possibility of cities. Now, I imagine that Planetary Landing will be opened up in multiple expansions. David Braben has before already talking about the fact that Planetary Landing will come in multiple stages, so it makes sense that they will also come in multiple expansions.
Yeah, exactly. It took... So, the first Planetary Landing expansion arrived in 2015. Odyssey arrived in 2021 or 2022, if I know. Yeah, in 2021. That means it took 6 years from the first iteration of planets until the next iteration of Planetary Landing. 6 years! So when are we gonna get the next types of planets? In 6 years, right? I can't believe it.
This, then, is my most anticipated future expansion for Elite Dangerous. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my brief look at the
You
future
really
of
hate
Elite
the
Dangerous and my list
HUD
of
colors.
top
Yeah, they're
10
always the
features
same,
that
right?
I
You can't change
really
it
am
without
looking
simple
forward to.
modification.
If there's
Yes.
anything I've missed or if there's anything you look forward to,
Exactly.
do let me know.
Yeah, exactly, Bartimo. They seem to be ignoring what players really want, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of Elite Dangerous players have moved on to Star Citizen. And every time, sometimes I reinstall Elite Dangerous, I try to go back, and I get bored very quickly. I go back to Star Citizen. That's how it is. I really, when I go back to Elite Dangerous, that's because Star Citizen is so broken that I get so mad at it that I would just leave it for a few days, but then I go back to Star Citizen. So there we have it. Interesting video from 7 years ago from Obsidian and it's interesting to see how much of those predictions have proven to be incorrect. It's very sad also.